Hello, everybody, and welcome to my review of Bleach, Chapter 648, Theater Suicide Scene 2. This week's chapters, I would definitely say, for all of them, were pretty confusing at first, but so it took a couple of read-throughs to try and get. So we start off with that Ichigo running into Askin, who apparently, I guess, defeated Grimjow or whatever. And as they're about to clash, they suddenly get like massive case of the chills. Like, it gets dark, it's cold. They're like, what the hell's going on? And of course, Ichigo immediately recognizes the Ryatsu as Kuraku's. And we see that at first it looks as if some type of illusion. However, Kuraku just shows up looking like a beast. His swords don't look different, but he's like, oh, so X-axis, how does the world appear to you now? And he basically describes it as a gloom, destitute place full of melancholy and despair. So is this your so-called Bankai? And Kuraku's like, yeah, you're correct in calling this my so-called Bankai. But then X is like, well, what my description of the world is kind of an exaggeration because a messenger from God, such as myself, feels no such emotions. And then he launches a massive attack that basically cuts off a piece of the palace, and he's like, I must have gotten you good. But somehow, he's like, what? Nani? He took damage somehow. And we find out that it is referred to as this first Dan the Kuraku calls it the first Dan, hesitating sharing of the wound. Basically saying that any wounds that either of them will inflict on your opponent's body will emerge on your own body as well, as if shared. So the first ability of this Bankai is insane, because think about it. No matter what they do to each other, no matter what amount of damage X-axis does to Kuraku, the damage that and the wounds he takes will appear on X-axis, regardless of his immunity. And of course, Kuraku also says that even while this is going on, they can, no matter what type of damage they take, no matter how many wounds or how severe they are, they cannot die from the wounds. And it's just kind of funny because, like, XX is like, what is the meaning of this? And then Kuraku's like, I told you, didn't I? It's my so-called Bankai. Which I thought is pretty funny. And then he restates his Bankai's name, which this week it seems to be translated as Bones of the Heavenly Blossoming Madness Lover's Suicide, as he has holding each sword pointing in a different direction, up and down, and it just like looks like he's about to. It's all dark and looks like he's about to do some major shit. X-axis is like, oh, you're very talkative now, but Kuraku's like, well, time to activate the second ability, or second Dawn, Bed of Shame, which apparently he describes as the man shamed by the wounds inflicted on him by his opponent, overcome with that shame, lays himself down, cowering in his bed, and is stricken with an incurable disease. So somehow, first, he makes it so that way their wounds that they inflict on their opponent will be put on them. Now, because they're inflicted with wounds, and then the second level is apparently something that gives you an incurable disease. And then we go to the third Dawn, which is apparently referred to as Dango's Abyss. And suddenly they're surrounded by this dark, abyssal water. And Kuraku only describes it as those having resolved themselves cast their bodies into the water, gushing forth until both the Ryatsu completely expire. So apparently this abyss is going to do some major shit, and apparently both of their Ryatsu, at the end of it, Ryatsus will completely be gone. So this is again, going back to that whole thing we saw in last week's chapter where the title of his Bankai translated something to double suicide. So is this really something that's going to actually kill them both? And this abyss that has formed of like dark water type thing, is it? My question is it how far is this range? Because everyone in the palace area felt the first the chills from his first level. So will this water affect everyone in the entire um, palace? Who knows? I mean, especially since he said he was glad that there was, nobody around to or nearby to get affected by this. But I think there's still a possibility some of the people will be affected by it. So it's definitely intriguing. I would have to say it was an okay chapter. I mean, it was pretty bad. There was some pretty badass scenery, but it just I think we need a better explanation as to his abilities and what they can do. So I will see you all next week, and don't forget to join the forum and join in the hype.